Hello, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to my art program today. For those of you who are brand new to this program, my name is Mr. Paul. I'm an artist and an art teacher, and I'm glad you're here. Usually what we do is we have a theme or an idea, a concept of what we're going to do today, what project, a theme. And then once we kind of talk about the theme, what we do, we start on the project, start on the art project. So I'm glad you're here. I hope you've had a good week out there. It's getting a little chilly outside, but it's still, if it's sun shining outside, it's still really kind of cool. Before we start up anything, let's talk about the materials that you're going to need today. It's the typical thing that we normally use. We need some white paper, pencils, erasers, maybe a pencil sharpener, and some kind of colors like crayons or colored pencils or oil pastels. Hey, maybe even if you have watercolor, a little watercolor set at home, you can do them in watercolor. Just something that we can brighten up the pictures that we're going to do, and you can use color to help create a feeling that you're trying to get across, right? So make sure you have all of that taken care of. All right, let's start. First and foremost, let's talk about the idea of the art project. Keep in mind that all art projects start out with a simple idea. And so today's is not so simple, but I think it's so important right now because of what's going on in the world and, the virus that's going on and not going to school and then going to school, and everything's kind of mixed up right now. And the word I want to, you probably heard already, is anxiety. Has everybody heard about that? I'm sure some of you out there have heard that already. And to start off with, let me define what that is. And I looked it up, and I'm going to give it to you. It's distress or uneasiness of mind caused by fear of danger or misfortune. And what that means is that sometimes we get kind of nervous, like something's not right, and it kind of makes you kind of fearful. It's not like a real major fear, but just a sense that, something's not right, and it upsets you, right? And it kind of puts you on edge. I'll tell you right now, everybody does that. So you're not alone. If you have this uneasiness about things and you're worried about this and you think about stuff that that you fear a little bit too much, that's called anxiety. It's kind of like, catch this, and I'll use my experience. When I was a little kid, one of my first experiences with a big dog is the dog came over and pushed me over and was growling and barking at me. And it freaked me out. I mean, it was just scary, scary, scary. Well, I got over that. But I tell you what, every time I saw that dog in the neighborhood, it didn't even have to be close to me. It could be a block down the street, but every time I saw that dog down the street, I'd get this weird feeling inside, this kind of anxious feeling, this little bit of anxiety that would creep up in my body and in my head. And it just made me feel uncomfortable. I knew that the dog at that point couldn't get to me. But just seeing that dog and having that experience, one of my first experiences with a big dog, wasn't good. It kind of like every time I saw him, and really every big dog I saw after that, it just kind of made me uneasy. And so that's what anxiety is. It's not that full force fear that comes sometimes. It's just that uneasiness. Sometimes you're in bed and you just kind of, at night or something, and something kind of comes up and you just feel uneasy. Well, I tell you what, everybody does that, so you're not alone. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to do an art project that I want you to think of something in your life that kind of makes you uneasy, right? Nothing crazy, but just something that every time it comes up or you think about it, it kind of puts you on in ease. You just don't feel very well. And of course, living that way is not a good way to live. I mean, who wants to live with anxiety and fear? Nobody. Zero. Nobody wants to do that. So what I did is I did something really kind of simple. And what I did is I drew a storm brewing, right? See the house and the trees and the darkness of the sky and the lightning bolts coming in and all these clouds coming in. Even to this day, sometimes when it gets really, really stormy outside, I get kind of, what's the word? A little bit of anxiety. It may not be anything big, but it just kind of puts you at unease. And so that's what I did. And what I did is I normally put down the word that we're talking about today. And of course, I wrote down here, anxiety. And I think maybe some of you do. Some of you, a perfect example is like people that have been in tornadoes. They had that fear. So every time a bad storm happens, what do you think they do? They think back at the tornado and they get real anxious. And so let's think about that. Now you can do this one if you want. I'm going to go ahead and start a project with this. You can do this, but you can do something else that gives you anxiety. And yes, you're a little, and this is the thing sometimes. Parents sometimes don't think that their kids are going through this, right? And we'll talk about a little later what we can do when we get kind of anxious, when anxiety starts creeping up that we have, okay? So what I did on this one is I wrote at the bottom of my page, and you don't have to do block letters like I did. You can just write the word, and there it is A N X I E T Y. Again, you could just write it like this, or if you want to get fancy with it, you can make block letters or bubble letters. Then the next thing I did is I drew my house, right? I drew the house. And again, you do not have to do my picture. If you want to use your own imagination, hey, something like that may not even bother you, right? So if there's something in your life that kind of puts this weird kind of, it's not a real fear, it's just this, this feeling of, I might get fearful, right? So I started out with a house, and I just made a real simple house, just to kind of give you the idea that, yeah, that's a house. Put some windows in it. There we go. That. And a roof. There we go. And then I'm going to put mine like on kind of not a hill, but kind of like this. There we go. Put a little thing right there. Again, you want to do something more fancy with the house, you go for it. I want you to use your imagination. You have the idea. You have these things, these kind of maybe anxious things in your life. Use one of those, right? It's okay to do that. Put it down. So I got that, and then what I did is I went ahead and put some trees in. And I made really, really simple trees. I made stalks, which were the trunks of the trees, and I just made these big old fluffy trees like that. See? Very, very easy to do. 2 straight lines like that, and bring in some, like, almost like balloons, fluffy balloons on the, and you can put 2, you can put 3, you can put 4, any amount of trees or anything like that is fine. See, really kind of easy. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another hill at the beginning, at the bottom like that. I actually, when I was young, I was in a tornado. I was spending the night with my cousins, and it was getting kind of weird and loud outside, and all of a sudden, my aunt ran in and said, let's go to the cellar. And here, there's like 5 of us kids, and we're running through the house, and, things are falling off the walls, and it's really loud. And of course, at that point in time, we got really, really scared. And we went out and we got into the cellar, and of course, everything was fine. But kind of gave me the feeling that, every time it did kind of rain or it got real loud outside because of the storm, I fought back to the tornado, right? And that's kind of, again, that's normal. You're not the only one that does that, okay? So, I got my tree, and I've got some, a house of trees, kind of a hill kind of a thing going on, right? I think another thing that I want you to keep in mind while you're doing this is that you need to kind of, already as you're drawing, you need to kind of think about the colors that you're going to use, right? If it's something like something that happens at night, don't you think that weird stuff that happens at night can be a little bit more scary or anxious making if it's done at night, right? It's just kind of, I don't know about you, but I've always been that kind of person. And I think it's because when it's dark outside, you can't really see anything. So your imagination really starts to explode in your head, right? So, let me see, okay. So, got the basic foundation of what we're doing, if you're doing this, a storm brewing, something coming up, you don't really know what's going on, you're feeling kind of, not real scared, but kind of anxious and nervous. So, the next thing I did is I started putting clouds in. And so I'll put my first cloud in like that, right? So anyway, we're going to take a very, very short break. I need to go get some more stuff for this project. If you haven't gotten your materials and if you haven't started, go ahead and get them. This is a good time. We're going to take just a really, really short break. And when we come back, we're going to finish this up. We're going to talk a little bit more about anxiety and how it can affect your life. And let's get into some color.